Okay, welcome everybody. This is the regular meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was July 17th of 2024. We took August off. And, oh, nope, dial it back. We need to officially welcome Terry.
Yes.
We unofficially welcomed you in July, but you weren't a member until August 1st, and you were sitting over there, so welcome to the table. Okay, so now he's official. Okay, all right, so back. I'm sorry, what?
I move the approval of the minutes.
Oh, okay, well, jumped right in there. Okay, second?
Yeah.
I didn't ask anybody if they had any comments or changes.
No, they had good look and they look great.
Yeah, I thought they looked
I
good.
continue to be impressed.
Okay, yeah, Tamara does a wonderful job.
Who was the second?
Second was Jim?
I'll second.
Okay, good. All in favor? Okay, next is the discussion and vote on, we have a request from the Oxbridge Elementary School PTO to put some signage up related to a bike walk and roll to school event. I skipped public comment. Okay, skip public comment. Thank you. I'm just off tonight, sorry. It's my third town meeting today. Any public comment? Diane? No? Jim? No? Okay, we're good. Okay. Adele, I think, is over at Great Island and will be along shortly as well. Okay, so back to bike, walk, and roll.
I move the approval of the bike walk hall, put the signs up.
I usually say a little something because the public's watching and they don't necessarily have. So just
Yeah.
give me 2 minutes. So this event will be going on in October. Highland is not one of our properties, but they have asked to put signage up in some of our parks, and our rules do require that we get approval for that. These will be regular, kind of like lawn sign shape kind of things, but
So are they gonna put it up or does the Parks and Recs Commission put it up? They put it up and they clean it down?
They would put it up and take it down through planning and zoning. It can go up 1 week before and must be taken down within 48 hours of the conclusion of the event. So again, the Selectman's Office gave the permit and has allowed the sign at Highland. So this would be to just allow the sign at one at Tilly and one at Cherry Lawn.
I just have a quick question. Do any other schools plan on doing this? Because it seems like this is an elementary school thing, so I don't know if, I guess they have to come to you with the request, so unless they come to you, then the answer is probably no, or they do.
we're not aware. We didn't
You're
receive
not
requests from any of the other PTOs that this was a town-wide elementary school event. The
Okay.
information we got was this was simply Oxbridge.
Okay, and has this been done before?
To my knowledge.
Okay,
I don't
No,
remember.
that's not been done before.
okay. All right.
Although I think once one is done, and if it's successful, because it is such a beautiful place to have something like that, you can bet probably other schools will be asking for something as
Yeah.
well.
And again, if remember, the permitting of Highland is through the Selectman's Office.
Yeah.
So they go to them to allow whether or not an event would be held there.
Okay.
And then we kind of facilitate it, but permission is granted through there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I move to vote on this or whatever.
To approve the signs. The specific language in the packet on item number 4, which Jen is so good about doing that for us now. So it would be the resolution listed in item number 4, which we approve the placement of one temporary lawn sign at Cherry Lawn Park and one temporary lawn sign at Tilly Pond Park by the Oxbridge Elementary School PTO for the advertisement of their bike walk and roll to school event on October 9th, 2024 at Highland Lawn. Signs may be put up no earlier than 1 week prior to the event and must be removed within 48 hours of the conclusion of the event. So that's the proposed resolution. So thank you again for drafting these up in advance. It's really helpful. Is that your move, Amy?
Yes, sure.
Okay, second? Ed? All in favor? Everybody good? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, next item number 5 is discussion and vote related to the renovation of Baker Park Playground. Okay, Janet, do you and Jen want to take this away?
Jen, do you want me to give the
Go
update?
for it, and then
Okay.
I can
Sure.
fill in if need be.
Simple update, which is that the working group has voted and approved the proposed design as circulated last, I believe. The one I gave the presentation on.
Right, and then it was also
And
in
it's
the
in the
meeting
packet.
materials.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just a recommendation, it's not, obviously not non-binding, but it's for this commission to review and look at the design. And, we did add 2 small features in the available space that we had available in the corner, in addition to the main playscape. So we added like an infinity bowl, one of those like spinning bowls, and as well as another climber that's a smaller climber that also spins in the corner. So those are really the only 2 changes from.
It was a digger too.
Oh, the backhoe digger. Yes, it's like a tiny little thing, but it's cute. And all of that, all of those additions still kept us under the 161,000 budget. And we also added, well, it's not really an addition so much as we made sure that at least one of the swing chairs in the 2 swing bays is ADA compliant. And so out of the 2 bays, we have one bay with a bucket chair, which is like for toddlers, like a 2 to 5 bucket chair, and next to that is a slightly larger ADA compliant swing chair that has like the harness and everything, but it's so those 2 are in that 2 to 5 bay, and then we have next to it a regular big swing bay, which has the 2 bell seats, just normal kids like bell seats. And then so that was really the only change, and so it wasn't incrementally a lot more cost-wise to change it from a regular seat to an ADA compliant seat, so that didn't make a big difference. And then we were able to come down a little bit on a few of the maybe installation costs, but I'll let you talk to that. Jen.
Sure.
Let Jen talk about the money.
All the fun
The
stuff.
money.
So there's 2 pieces to this. So the first is we realized, as I was going through this a little bit, that in the way this was done, and in order to try to save some money, they had originally broken out the installation of the project to be done separately. In order to do that, that would mean that we would have to have a separate contract go out to bid and everything for that piece, which would hold up this project. So rather than doing that, we're going back to having MRC would do not only the design and provide the equipment, but they will also do the installation. Doing that, there is a slightly higher cost to do that. It will make that piece cost just under $9,000 more, which we're comfortable that there will be some additional ARPA dollars that we can use to spend that, because originally we were stuck with the note, you've got 161, do not go over it, but we're working that out right now. So the finance department feels very confident that we would have those funds available. In addition to that, part of what we talked about, and that was in the packet, was to again make this accessible now that we are doing.
Wait, Jen, real quick.
Yep.
I just want to point out the fact that one of the reasons that I think we feel very comfortable staying with MRC to do both the materials and the labor, even though it has a slight cost differentiation, is because MRC is a state-approved vendor.
Right.
So the whole contract process would be significantly more simplified
Right.
by going with them versus, an outside vendor.
Right, so it all falls under Connecticut state contract, and then they are also responsible for handling the coordination and everything else versus
And their
us having two
insurance
separate
would
things.
cover, you know, the whole process end to end.
Right. Thank you for that.
So they would effectively act like a general contractor.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So
so
not
they're
just-
responsible for making sure, not just ordering the equipment, getting it to us, but making sure that it's all done properly, installed properly, and manage the whole installation process, rather than us having to do it separately with
Act
the...
as a GC effectively.
Exactly. So then, in addition to that, we do need to make it an accessible playground. Once we start touching it, everything has to be made accessible. I will share with you that the town is currently undergoing an audit, an access audit, and they happen to be here this week. So I pulled them in, and I just wanted to make sure what we were doing. So we would be required to make it, to provide access from the parking lot to the playground, which currently does not exist. So as part of that, that will be, and that's what that second resolution was, draft resolution was for. Not only we would put matting on top of the engineered wood fiber in certain sections. If you saw that the yellow part in that document was where we would put the matting. That goes on top of the engineered wood fiber. So it also makes it that much more better for fall attenuation. So that's also a plus, but it will get people access onto the equipment, and then it still allows, so it's similar to what we did at Cherry Lawn and also McGuan, where we have the engineered wood fiber in some places and poured in place in others. So it basically serves as that poured in place. And then we would be adding I think we're looking at probably concrete, because it will hold up better as a walkway from the parking lot up to the two play areas. So that's the additional money that we will be going for. And again, I've been told that we're in good shape, so we're very confident that that will happen. But when I spoke to the audit people, they were like, "Nope, you've got to do it." So I don't see us having a choice, but this way there are some funds, so we would be able to go and get the extra funding, so we don't have to take anything away from the playground and the pieces that that have been selected. So I think hopefully it would be a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, coincidentally, it was in the Advocate a week, 10 days ago, that New Canaan is just settling a lawsuit over
Bless you.
non-compliance with ADA for some of their public and park facilities, and things like sidewalks from a parking lot to a ball field, et cetera, were specifically cited. So the government does come and check and make sure that these are set. So it's really not a want to do, it's really a must do. So.
I have a question. So this walkway, we obviously want to make it aesthetically pleasing, right? Concrete may or may not be, depending. Are there any other alternatives that are still compliant? I mean, can you do
I mean, it would really be that or
stone
asphalt.
dust? It's asphalt or concrete, that's it?
Pretty much. I mean, especially in that area. And the feeling is because of all the trees and the roots,
Yeah.
that we wouldn't want to go with asphalt, because it's softer, it'll break up more easily, and we get all the bumps. Actually, and then stone dust and things, you probably, just from a maintenance standpoint, when they're mowing and rocks and things
It's so
get
much
into
less
it.
expensive.
So, but it's also a lot more maintenance.
Mm.
You'd have to keep maintaining it. It would have to be packed just right. So basically the concrete
Right.
typically is life of about 50 years. So hopefully, like that, right now there's a spot, it comes up from the road by the water fountain, and there's a big pad that's broken anyway. So we would just remove that and then have it continue on.
Okay. You like concrete?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was more of a, cost and endurance, implications. So, I think I defer to Jen and her team on, the fact that, I consider wood, but then I know that, rods, and because we considered wood for the playground materials itself. And then we found out that the lifetime was just much significantly shorter than the metal, playscape. So.
Yeah, Jen's actually going back and forth with the finance director and the town administrator on the concrete versus the asphalt. The different
Right.
costs, but also the maintenance, the ongoing, the risk of cracking, whatever, and they seem to be leaning towards
the concrete.
To actually spend the more money. Yes, Ed?
So I support the playground. I
Yeah.
think it looks really great. But I'm curious, and as a new person, okay, I kind of only maybe paid attention sporadically to some of the things that were here. And so I remember last year when you guys were talking about relining the pickleball courts, there was quite a bit of discussion about having data on how they were being used. And I'm wondering what was the data that, if any, that we had for figuring out this project? Or did we just say we want to replace it, improve it, time to replace it?
Data of use, like
Yeah.
usage. We don't have any data that we've reported on, but it's more anecdotal, and we have 2 neighbors that live right across the street from the playground that were on our working group, who spoke to just like how there's constantly kids there, and my own kids were constantly there when they were in that age group. So we don't have anyone who like recorded,
Sure, yeah.
usage.
Yeah.
But I think it's a well-known park within the community because of how accessible it is, like being right on Roan Avenue, close to the train station, but also with that field next to it that is used very heavily by all the soccer teams. So a lot of siblings end up going there on the weekends, after school during practices. So we know it's a heavily used playground, and I also think that's why it's in such poor shape, because it's so heavily used, and it's been over 20 years. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah. No, and
that was sort of the impetus for
yeah.
getting
It's also
it.
interesting just how old the equipment is, and 20 years. I mean, our equipment is inspected through PERMA, I believe, for safety. They come around and make sure all the bolts and nuts and everything are working on a regular basis. So the equipment is deemed safe, but their industry standards as to sort of kind of what the enjoyment life
Yeah.
of a piece of equipment is. And, what we've seen as we've done these different projects now is sort of what was standard 20 years ago. This may be older than 20 years, versus now there's a movement towards more equipment that's more challenging for children. So part of it was just the feeling that a lot of our playground equipment in town is kind of tired and boring, and that we wanted to get something new and fresh to get the kids challenged in the playground. So it was more around, we've been looking at that for dinosaur for a really long time. And Janet, can you also just touch on members of your advisory group, our neighborhood, and we have
2 of the
neighborhood
5
support?
members are 2 women who live in the neighborhood, who have children between 5 and 12 age group, which is the targeted demographic for that playground. And then the other 3 live, actually another one lives right here on near water, and I live pretty close by, and then with another one that lives in Tokenique. So it's all sort of in closer by this part of town, so we just use it a lot more. And I think every mom has like 3 or plus kids.
3 to 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Children. Yeah, but you feel it's been socialized with the Norotan Avenue neighborhood through your advisory group?
Yeah, by the 2 women who live there. Like, I think, every time we had sort of design questions or just like options, it was taken back to the folks who would probably use it the most, and, they had come back with answers. And
Yeah, I think it looks great. I mean, I live in that neighborhood too. My kids, obviously, when growing up, used the park a lot. And now my grandkids are using it. I think you did a great job with it, and I love the way that we expanded it to include the swings.
the swings, yeah.
Take advantage of that land. That's
Yeah, we
close
thought
to
that
it.
was important to have swings at a playground.
Any questions for Janet? Just to backtrack a wee bit, welcome John Skrotsky, our first selectman. So we're voting on the playground design for Baker, to breathe the giant, but also we're going to need some more money.
The number you're dialing has been disconnected.
Primarily because a big chunk of it is for ADA compliance.
Yep.
But it's not compliant now. Well, it's not that it's not compliant because we haven't done a change, but once you do a change, you have to bring it in, and right now there is no paved path from the parking lot to the playground.
Jennifer helpfully briefed me on all that today. And
Okay, so you're up to speed.
you know what? You just see the uptake on the Cherry Lawn playground equipment.
Mm-hmm.
You just know the minute you put something a little bit better in, it's going to attract families, strollers, kids. It's going to be terrific. So I'm surprised.
So you're up to speed. Good, excellent. Okay. All right, so we did break this into two motions. One is on the design, and then the second is to support the request for the additional funding, because that is not guaranteed. We've gotten good indications from Town Hall, but until the appropriate bodies approve it, we don't have it. So we want to, get the design concept, make sure everybody's comfortable with that. We do need to get the money. If for some reason we didn't get the money, then we would have to, think about how we proceeded and whether you have to give up a few pieces, which would be sad. But we thought that it was probably wiser just to kind of break the two for now. So if I can get a motion for the first resolution, which is that the Park and Recreation Commission supports the design of the Baker Park Playground as presented. Motion, Jim, second, Mary Louise. Any more discussion? No? Okay, all in favor? Okay. Janet, thank your group, that you guys have worked really hard on this, and I know it was particularly challenged because during a lot of this period we were without a director, so you guys were flying without professionals and support, and the devil is always in the details and the requirements and navigating town hall and this and that and the other thing, and you guys were kind of hanging out there.
Just don't watch like the first couple of meetings. I may or may not have called it correctly.
Yeah, so thank you very much for persevering,
No worries.
and then to Jen for getting up to speed quickly,
Yes, Jen was
as a
very
new one,
helpful.
and jumping in and helping us, wade through some of these, gnarlier issues that have come up towards the end. Okay, did we vote?
On the first one?
We
Yeah.
did vote.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. And then the second is the resolution that the Park and Recreation Commission supports a request for additional funding to improve accessibility to the Baker Park Playground through the installation of MLADRS playground surfacing, matting, and the installation of a new walkway. Oh, you wanted to update that.
Yeah, it was the first one.
You updated the first one?
Well, I was just going to say, supports the design of the Baker Playground and supports a request for additional funds to complete project as proposed.
Ew, but, so then I did that wrong. Should we redo that? How do
I
we-
think you have to redo it if the
I think
board-
we have to redo it.
I think I would probably redo it.
Okay, why don't you
Do
read
you want me
that
to read
then?
that?
Yes, let's redo it.
So the first one,
She hand wrote it.
yeah,
Wasn't in my.
this all happened last minute. The Parks and Recreation Commission supports the design of the Baker Park Playground as presented and supports a request for additional funds to complete the project as proposed.
So is this both motions in one?
No, this is
No,
the
this is
first,
the
this
first
is
one.
redoing the first one
Yeah,
because
the
we're going to
design.
need that few extra
Right.
money for the installation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, who,
It was Jim.
it was Jim, you're still good?
Yep.
Mary Louise, you're still good, second? Okay, now we vote again. Thank you. Got it. Okay, and then the second resolution was to request the additional funds to improve the accessibility to the Baker Park Playground through the installation of MLADRS playground surfacing, matting, and the installation of a new walkway. Can I have a proposer? Janet? Second? Jim? Any more discussion? No? Everybody's good? Okay. Okay, so next step is we go to the.
Working with Finance Department.
Committee?
And then we'll be going to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance for the funding, and hopefully, if that's all approved, I would think we'll be able to probably get the contracts done, hopefully by November, beginning of November. So we'll be good.
Yeah, and then I think once that's ordered, I believe the timeline was that we should have it up and running before like end of March.
Right.
So, you know,
Obviously weather dependent, but they'll get in.
Yeah,
they
but like
can get
over the
in as-
winter, we're hoping to get it
Right,
done so kids can start using it in the spring.
right. Yep.
I think I walked in late and I missed the beginning of the discussion, but are these extra funds extra
Yes.
ARPA funds?
Yes.
That is our hope. If for some reason those weren't available, we would discuss if we wanted to request funding from their pockets, but, yeah. Your pockets, I know you have pockets. But we are very hopeful and have been led to believe that there is sufficient excess ARPA funding available. again, Jen's been working with Jen Chernowski and Kate Bush.
I'm not sure if you need to go to
Pretty active.
Board of Finance in that case.
It's,
Just the Board of Selectmen, I believe, because they're in charge of the ARPA funds.
To reallocate those ARPA funds, we might need the Board of
Might have to
Finance to
go.
do that, but
So it would be
yeah,
Board
I'm
of,
supportive.
it would be Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, or just Board of Finance?
yeah,
Yeah, no,
that's,
Board of Selectmen.
Board of
Always go first, okay.
that's my understanding, because it was the two.
So we'll work to get that on your agenda, maybe the October, what is it, 7th now? Whatever that one is.
7th is all interviews, so it's executive session, but the later one in October, we can do that.
That's not what you're talking
Why?
about. Right? You told me the September one was executive session, and the October one was the
Well,
next
the
one.
earlier one, we'll work it out, it's fine.
Okay, moving right along, okay. Next, we're going to give an update on the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail project and what's been going on over the summer.
Sorry, could you start a little earlier for those of us who really are new and kind of like, yes, what's going on in the summer, but I know this has been going on longer, and so.
Some history.
Do you want the whole 10-year history?
Decade history?
You can give it in a Cliff Note version.
The Cliff Note version. The Cliff Note version is that the town acquired what is known as the short lane parcel, which was basically a little driveway with one house over 10 years ago now. And it's kind of over at that end of the park. And the town kind of already owned the park and was parkland around it. So it was sort of like the hole in the donut. So gave us the opportunity to incorporate that into the park and make it useful for the community. I think we paid about 1.8, 1.9 million, as I recall, for it.
Less than
Something.
2%.
Yeah, just less than 2, but you know, real money. There was also a second house that was down there, kind of where the sailboats are, that had been donated to the town somewhere along the line. And the Darien Junior Sailing Team used to use it as sort of their summer headquarters, but we lost that in a storm, one of the hurricanes, I don't remember which. So that house went away, and then the short lane house was demolished, and you could just see kind of driveway remnants. So the commission has been working since then, really, Amy. I think that was the first thing you and I were put on when we joined the commission maybe 9 years ago, to really think about that. And there's been a number of different iterations of the project. We originally hired Weston and Sampson just to look at this project, and the direction that we were going in was to put a town pool there. And we worked on that for a while, and then for various reasons that didn't happen. And then from there, we went on to do our complete master planning process. And there was some feeling that, you know, let's just incorporate everything into the master plan, which we did and completed in January of 2018. And, you know, I know you guys are familiar, and those, you know, you guys have started taking a look at it. It's a big chunky document to work your way through. The master plan still identified weed and that part of it as a potential area for a pool. Also identified Cherry Lawn as an option for a pool, but for various reasons that just has not happened. So next step, and now I'm getting definitely pre-pandemic, is we talked about really just finishing out the area so that it's usable, because it's really not particularly usable space for the community right now. Pam Geary and the crew did kind of clean out part of the area, and they put down some grass. You'll see that area is kind of grassy over there, and they only went so far. But the problem is the Phragmites have grown up so tall that, you know, you sit in this picnic area, but you're looking into a bunch of weeds, basically, so it's not particularly attractive space. So working with Weston and Sampson, we came up with a plan to finish that area, and the original hope was to connect a walking path, not only through there, but that would go all the way around the park. But that was concluded at the time by the selectmen to be too expensive. So we were asked to go back to the drawing board, eliminate the sort of entire, you know, park, to say, you know, let's not do all this incorporation with the walkways, but at least get the area finished. So the plan now that we have that's approved is really to, you know, finish that area, but it took a long time to get there because there's so many different permitting and application steps that we have to go through. It's a long slog. So we finally did get our approval January. No, it was January for sure of this year. Received all the approvals that we needed from the various town bodies. And that's like that P&Z link that I pointed you to. You'll see there's like 26 different documents, and there's opinions from CT Deep, and there's wildlife, and there's just a whole host of steps one has to go through when you're doing anything on the waterfront. So we ran that gauntlet, got everything done, went out to bid, and unfortunately the bids, and this was Marchish, came in much higher than we had hoped. So at that time, we were asked by the selectmen to see if we could go back, and that was what, March, April? Somewhere in there.
Right around budget
April,
approval.
right, it was right around budget approval time, see if we could go back and if there was a way like we could divide the project up, maybe do part now, part later, to maybe spend more around the $1 million that we were thinking about. So over the summer, Dan Biggs, who's our consultant for Weston and Sampson, worked on that, and he took the two bids that we did get, which they were both around 1.9, but the way they whacked the different components up, it was kind of hard to parse through, so it took him some time to work through that. And then he came back with the first scenario, and
Which I saw, yeah.
yeah, Dan comes back with very like technical stuff that, you know, if you're not a landscape architect. So working with Jen, we said, can we just sort of reduce this to a chart and just say, like, for 1 million, what do we get? What don't we get? And what he came back to us first, which was late July, was this option.
You can't put that on the
A.
screen, can you?
No, I don't have a.
Yeah, that never seems to work for us down
Okay.
here. We're going to be back in 119 next month,
Okay.
and that should work better. But basically what that would give us is getting the whole area just cleaned up, regraded, and seeded. It would remove the driveway and the wall along the beach, you know, where there's that old broken road and the broken wall and everything. It would remove that, get the electrical underground, and it would remove the 3 smaller wetlands, but would not give us the money to restore the wetlands. So,
And can I ask, but
Yes.
so when you talk about like making this, you know, usable,
Yeah.
how do we anticipate it's going to be used? And do we have data to support that? And the reason I'm kind of asking that is because like when you were talking about the walking path, like I totally get like a walking path looks nice, but like you can walk now, like on the grass, like the nice grass. I'm not talking about on this property. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, are kids going to play on the grass? In which case, like, reseeding it makes sense, or like, how is it that we're expecting it's going to be used?
we expect it will be a picnic area. What it will do is allow people to sit in that area and view the water, which will make it much more appealing, and also let them go directly from that area to the water, which you can't physically do now. Walking paths, if you look at the master plan, we're one of like the top desired amenities in town. People really like walking paths. I mean, we've seen at Highland Farm when that
Yeah.
path was put in, people use it to teach their kids to ride bikes, scooters in a very safe environment. Also remember when we do, as we were talking about earlier, when we do an improvement, we have to factor in ADA compliance, which kind of demands a paved walkway to give people access to that space. So it would give.
So can I just on that specifically, because like one of the thoughts I had on this, just from like, well, I would call value engineering, which I don't know if that's the right thing, but like, could we do this without that paved path? Would that save hundreds of thousands of dollars? Because to me, like, I can't really visualize. I didn't go over there to see how big this space is, but it just seems like it's not really adding a lot if we're going to use it as a picnic area.
Well, Ed, if you think about, so you know the open area here, right, that they want to make a picnic. So if you look straight out where the kayaks and all that, that's complete, that's going to be filled in with sand. So
That I
it'll be an
get,
extension
yeah.
of the beach.
No,
So
that
you'll-
I get, yeah.
You'll be able to walk from here to there. And
No, I was talking about like the loop.
right, so the
Yeah.
thinking is that aesthetically, to make it a loop, that people will be picnicking here, but will also be able to now get up and say, oh, I'll go for a walk through this part of the park now. And
Just, I hear you, but like, to me, like, if there's no, and again, I don't mean to like go back to, oh, things don't revolve around pickleball, but like, you know, we were talking about something that was relatively inexpensive
Right.
to do, and there was where's the data to support doing it? And this is something that is very expensive to do. So when, like, to say like, oh, we think people are gonna picnic here and walk over there, like, I don't know how many people picnic here on a daily basis, but
yeah,
I mean, it would just seem like it would be really,
I understand what you're saying, how many
supportive
people
if we
actually
had-
use it. Yeah.
yes, as opposed to saying, hey, you know, build it and they will come.
I would say the data comes from the master plan where walking paths were one of the highest rated, you know, requested items. And then also knowing, for instance, when we added one at Highland Farm, how very, you know, actively used and highly popular that is. And, you know, people I think are looking for areas that they can walk with their children, teach them to ride bikes, whatever, that are off our roads because, and ride bikes, because frankly, Darien's roads are not particularly bike friendly. John's been talking a lot about the sidewalks on Nearwater Lane and just to get here. And that's been quite a debate in town over the last few months about the removal of some of the trees along our street, which as a resident, I hate seeing them go. But as a chair of Parks and Rec and as a mother and grandmother, I know that the sidewalk is just not safe and accessible. And so it's really, there's so many children in this neighborhood, giving them places to, you know, ride, to run in the safety, I think is one of the things that we felt is an amenity. Yes, Chris?
Yeah, I also went to Tilly Pond. You know, God only knows how long ago we decided to pave those walkways, but they're constantly used. And out of our parks that we currently have, there's not that many, right? We can't do it all, right? We can't, like,
They're nature
this
preserves.
is really opening up much more of an opportunity. And I would say that I think the biggest advantage to what is going on down there, people have this perceived area of where Weed Beach ends. This is gonna add, I wanna say like 200 or so yards.
It's about almost 5 acres of.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a significant amount. And once again, always, I mean, I point to the new units we have coming in town that will not have backyards, that would, you know, will not necessarily, and will be expected to use green space and want to come to beaches. And, you know, we'll be doing a lot of construction of Pear Tree, at least short term. This, you know, I think the longer and more accessible that beach is, I think is great. And then I think that giving to Lori's point, the idea of another walkway, I understand your point on data completely. But, you know, living.
I'm okay,
Yeah.
and to be clear, Doug, I mean, I'm okay with anecdotal, and
Yeah.
we feel this, you know, is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that as an approach. I just, when I wasn't on the commission and was in the audience, heard, you know, oh, well, we have to have data to line these courts, and so it was a, you know, this is a different perspective.
Well, I think what you also need to consider is this is in the master plan that was written in 2018 that will be up for renewal soon. And in 2018, I don't think any of us, maybe a few even knew what pickleball was or other, you know, sports or activities in town. So when the master plan is updated, maybe the survey will show the town doesn't want a pool anymore. Maybe they want more pickleball courts. But I think also to consider what was written in the plan and the use for parks and what the demand showed is driving this as well. And updating, I've lived here 23 years and, you know, my kids, I have a 25-year-old. He was at Baker Park when he was 2 years old, so.
On the dinosaur?
Probably, yeah. And, you know, this area, they both did sailing, and I think part of the project is also to pave the lot over at the end of, and get rid of the dirt and
Make it better.
that floods and make it better and more accessible and more parking spots. So I think those things are being taken into consideration as well. Yeah.
Yes, Jim?
If I could just add to kind of piggyback off something that Chris said, in terms of accessibility, this will come and play a role down the road so that basically what happens with, in terms of trails and things like that, it's about a certain percentage of your trails should be accessible
In the town, you mean?
in the town, so townwide. So by having this in a spot that's
Mhm.
relatively flat and everything, that will help get us towards that percentage. And again, it's not just for people in wheelchairs, but anybody with mobility issues, whether it's kids, it's adults, it's grandparents wanting to take a walk. So I think it's also important from the accessibility standpoint.
How often, rookie question, how often is the master plan? Is it 10 years?
Every 10 years, get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
Get ready. You got about a year to get up to speed, and then maybe time to be off and running again, maybe a little bit longer than that. But, yeah. We finished it in January 2018, and it's probably a 12 to 18 month process from start to finish, from when we start, putting together an RFP and interviewing providers, et cetera. So it's a long slog. So we'll be there before we know it. Okay, so we had option B. Dan Biggs presented that to Jen and I, option A, excuse me, over the summer. That was July-ish. Our enthusiasm was well under control because we didn't feel it wasn't really accomplishing core objectives and really providing the community with anything where I think they would come and say, wow, this is like great. So we asked him to see if he could devise another scenario, and then two weeks ago, he came back with what we're just referring to as option B, which really addresses the front half of the property, but then leaves what I call the back half closer to the sewer property pretty much completely alone. So the entire wouldn't be demolished. We would not remove the 3 smaller wetlands. We would only be able to remove 1 wetland, and we would not be able to restore any wetlands. And in either scenario, we can't redo the stone parking area, which is kind of gnarly. And I remember very clearly in one of the P&Z hearings at Steve Albany, very specifically, goes, please tell me you're going to fix that parking lot. That parking lot is horrible. Please fix that parking lot. It's uneven. It's full of rocks. It's really bad. And that will not be paved. That's going to be a surface that has great. What do we call that? Permeable is more permeable. And then Dan said we either would have some money either to do some more landscape plantings, or alternately a pathway for the junior sailors. So it's better, great. So 10 days ago after we got this, Jen and I and Dan Biggs sat down with John, said the selectman charge is coming up with a couple of options to spend a lesser amount of money. Here's the 2 options. What do you think? And he said,
Yeah, so all the history she just said, when we saw the plan that was the more restricted plan and that was presented, the $1 million estimate actually came from Weston and Sampson. I mean, Dan thought about all that. They said, we think it's going to cost about $1 million. And so recognize that at the time we got those bid results, right, we were in the middle of the budget process. The Board of Finance ended up cutting $2 million from the Board of Education budget. And when this project came forward, and this, well, actually it's $1.9 million. It's not $1 million. We were all kind of taken aback. And the reality is that if it had come in at $1.3 million, maybe $1.4 million, we would have approved it and said, well, that's inflation, we'll deal with that. But it was so much more, almost 2x, it really led us to say, well, let's go back and recheck and just make sure that we haven't missed something in terms of, is this the most cost-efficient way to do this? Was there something in the plan that we could take out that really wouldn't affect the overall aesthetics of what we were trying to accomplish? And so when you guys did that and Weston and Sampson weighed in, it's clear when you look at the options that nothing really kind of can be efficiently cut to make this kind of what we want. If you think about it, the way it's set up is you're going to fix the beach, and you're basically extending Wheat Beach all the way over to the fence line with the private beach association. You're going to create this lawn that's right there that allows people to do whatever, that's got the path. And then you're going to move the wetlands up to where they're all up at the north part of the property by the sewer plant, and all that is set up. Now on top of that, you're going to fix all the landscaping on the right side so that the folks who live on near water and look at this can look at that and say, wow, that looks terrific. And unfortunately, you can't really take any of those things out. I agree that the pathway needs to stay. If you've spent any time at Highland Farms, which I have, the funny thing is that it's perfectly mowed. You can walk everywhere. Everybody walks on the path. They run on the path, they do strollers, bikes, it's always on the path. And so I think that we may not have hard data on path usage, to your point, but as they say, the plural of anecdote is fact. And there's so much usage of that path, I think you could reasonably make the assumption there will be a lot of usage on this path. So after going through all these options, in my view, it's very hard to deliver something that Darien residents would expect that doesn't include all the things in option C, which is the original plan that was presented. So even though it's going to be more expensive than we hope, the reality is that we can present that to the Board of Selectmen and frankly the public and say, look, we've been through all this. We really think we can deliver what you're looking for. It's going to cost us money, but we still think that that's the right answer. I would further say that it's also kind of a fairness question. It's unfair to the residents on Nearwater that they have to look at this kind of packed up property and undeveloped property, and they've been doing that a long time. I think it's also unfair to the taxpayers who paid for Short Lane, and we bonded, and it's been sitting there for more than 10 years, and it's not really a property that they can use. My last point in terms of costs is even if we end up spending the $2 million to get this done, keep in mind that that's bonded along with a lot of other things that we're doing, and so that the cost is not sort of a one-time cost, it's something that's bonded over a period of time. And then lastly, to reiterate the point that was made earlier, we're adding residents in town for whom there is no green space in their yard, and this gives us just one more spot where people can go to and maybe take some pressure off of crowding at Cherry Lawn and some of these other places where you guys are having difficulty. So I'm very supportive of going with the plan that we originally had. I'm eyes open about the costs. I'm prepared to both present and help with the presentation of that to the Board of Selectmen and defend and aggressively promote this to the public. I think it's the right choice. And I'd encourage you guys to be supportive of that.
Thanks, John. I also want to mention over the summer in late July, John, Jen, and I met with representatives of the Norotan Bay Association. I'm really pleased Jim Furlong, who's the Bay Association president, is here with us this evening. Jim and I have had a lot of conversations over the summer about the project, making sure that we're delivering a product that the neighborhood will be satisfied with. We had a great conversation that night. They asked if they could come back with some, like a summary and some requests specific to plantings and different things to us. The Bay Association, and it's been reviewed by their board, has now delivered that to us. We've got that with Dan Biggs, and Jen and I will be meeting with him next week to go over that, to incorporate some of their thoughts, especially about the planting and the borders and such. So we're working closely with the neighborhood, and Jim, I think you said your board is good.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that. So being the president of an association like that is not easy. This man's not being compensated for that. And I've had a chance to see firsthand sort of the work that you do, Jim, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate that. The things that you brought up in that meeting that you'd like to see as part of this project from a base perspective, I'm in complete agreement with that. I think that this plan, the option C plan, is going to incorporate that. But further, we're going to continue a collaboration with you. So as this evolves, you'll be able to look at it and say, yeah, it's those needs are being met. They're completely reasonable. And I just want to thank you for helping us make sure that that's well represented in this work. So I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and certainly one of the things we talked about during that meeting was, Dan talking to the Bay representatives about, the concern about, flooding and water absorption, which the dunes, but also the wetlands provide. And in either of these two sort of pared down options, we don't get the full wetland restoration, which I know was important to your residents as well, to absorb water when we do have these high water events. So, other questions or discussion of where we are and how we got there? It's been a long slog. It's plenty of.
And given your questions, do you have any reactions to kind of this conversation?
No, it's
Does
very
this help
helpful.
you?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other? Okay, for reasons I don't know, there's the piece of paper, sorry, okay. So the resolution that we'd like to put forward is that the Parks and Recreation Commission supports proceeding with the approved plan for the Wheat Beach Meadow and Trail project in its entirety. And that will give John the affirmation to then for us to go back to the Board of Selectmen.
Motion to approve.
Chris?
No, it's a motion to approve.
Oh, yes, Chris is,
Yeah,
yes, moving, you're moving. Second? Cindy? Okay, all in favor? We're good. Great.
Gloria, let me add one thing to your brief history.
Yes.
And that is for the pool people, because we know they are interested in the pool. We also considered, in addition to Wheat Beach and Cherry Lawn, we considered Town Hall as well as the old senior center property. So I just wanted to make sure that those were listed.
I forgot about that.
in this,
Yep, you're right.
and on the record. My other comment is removal of the Phragmites is an important invasive effort.
Yes. Yes, they are very bad for the habitat. Now, I'm not going to put my hands on it, but somewhere I wrote down or made some notes about, and Dan has told us in the past, that they're very damaging to other both plant and animal species that we want to thrive in the area. They really just, which is typical of an invasive, they just choke everything else.
Water, everything.
Water, yeah, everything out. So they're really not good. And we've tried hacking them down, and then within weeks or months, they're just. I think as Pam did that beginning one summer, she just had the guys hack them all down, and you could
Didn't
sit
work.
there and you could look at the water, and it was, oh my God, this is great. And then
They're back.
they're back. So that was that.
Whack-a-mole.
Okay, next, we have a proposed donation of 2 Adirondack chairs to be placed here at Wheat Beach. Y'all remember that any donations under the bench and chair program need to come to us for approval. Our next discussion item is an update to the program guidelines, which we had reviewed earlier in the season and realized that they needed some refreshing, so Jen has worked on that. And part of that will be, if you all agree, that any standard donations can be just taken care of by the office and won't need to come to us for a vote. So it would only be in the future, anything different. But because we haven't made that change yet, we need to approve this. So.
Yep, so attached in the packet was the application. It would be in memory of Vicki L. Nolan, beloved member, Garden Club of Darien. So they were looking for 2 chairs. Pretty self-explanatory, I guess.
Are they wood?
If there are other questions. No, they're they're called polywood. They match the ones that are out there. Again, staying consistent with what we already have.
And is the plaque in conjunction with the plaques guideline?
So-
Isn't there signs?
Yeah, in terms of what they can do, the size, the
Yeah.
number of letters, yes. So that complies with, well, yes and no with the current policy. But yes.
Okay.
I'll
Okay, yes.
explain in the next one. It makes
Okay,
it
okay.
just gets a little confusing. But yes,
I mean, for the town, not just for us. It's the town's got, I think, rules, right, associated with the
The
signage.
Monuments and Ceremonies
Thank you.
Commission
Yes, thank you.
has rules, which we found, took some looking, but we finally did get them. They're not dated, whatever, the town code says they're supposed to be on file with the town clerk. I talked to them, the town clerk didn't have them, but I finally tracked this document, but it's not really official looking.
Needs work.
It needs work. But talking to the town clerk, but I also consulted, as it was said at our earlier meeting today, with Kate Bush, who is the knower of all. She's gonna be just, I emailed her, I'm like, where am I gonna go for help? You know, she just knows everything. But her belief was that anything to do with what's going in the parks was solely under our purview, and that monuments and ceremonies, and it was almost more like urban legend that they needed to be approving plaques to go on chairs or benches in the parks.
Okay, I just remember with the
Yes.
gazebo that we had Pam review that to figure that out. And she came
Yes.
back with a yes for us, so we were able to proceed.
Right. So,
But I don't know what the underpinnings were,
yeah,
so.
so we have concluded that this is in Kate, that was Kate's guidance, that this is within our authority. And you'll see when we talk, we still have some restrictions because you want to be careful what people put on these things. But,
Sure.
So that's that.
Yep.
Okay, so any questions on this specific donation?
Very nice.
Okay, motion to approve accepting this gift?
With thanks to the donors.
With thanks to the donors,
Yeah,
yes. Amy,
Yeah,
second?
Jim?
Ed? No, you got it? Okay, all in favor? Okay. So now we will go on to the updating the guidelines. The pricing was out of date. Jen's done quite a bit of work on this, again, drawing on our expertise. I was quite interested to hear Jen say that in Westport, they had bench and chair donations coming out of either ear, to the point she was like, no more, there's not a place, a bit of sand. I'm like, we do not have that issue right now. So it was interesting when we and I were having the conversation, and I was like, yeah, but, and she's like, no, you don't understand. like in Westport, we had to tell people like, no more. So we are not there yet.
We had to put a moratorium on bench donations. At one location, we have over 100 benches. At Campo Beach, and everybody constantly, they want more, more, more. It's year round that they're requesting them. So
You could make it into a profit center?
no, it becomes like wall to wall bench. Then they went to another spot because we said no, we had held it up on there. So I looked at this kind of with that in mind, just trying to have some not controls in place, but just to make sure that it's clear and easy, and doesn't become overwhelming. So, what I was starting to get at, Amy, when you said if it was, because I was not understanding where you were going with it. So the current policy called it a commemorative bench donation program, but then it says, if you look in the language, that you cannot do anything in memory of anybody and no dates. I'm like, well, that's what a commemorative bench is. It memorializes something. So we basically just kind of looked at trying to clean it up, take out things that were contradictory. Some things were very repetitive, and just kind of make it very, very clear as to, the procedures, the guidelines, and what we would expect. So, also that it becomes town property, that it doesn't give anybody preference for that bench. If you donate a bench or a chair, you don't get to come and kick people out. That's my bench. I'm sure you've read through, so a lot of those are in there. The one thing that we did keep out was dates. We asked for not to include dates, indicating like like we just approved the one for in memory of, but it wouldn't have dates, because we thought that made it more,
Like a tombstone?
yeah. One of the other things that we did put on there was to, and this was in there, no messages of private nature, acronyms. We added in logos not being permitted because we think it could be misconstrued. Plus they don't print very well on, it's a small plaque. So we basically just kind of streamlined that. And then we also looked at the application, made that a little bit more easy to follow. We said what benches are allowed at what facilities, including the new prices in there, and which I'll go into in a moment. So again, just trying to make it much, clear, easy, concise. And then, as Lori was mentioning, one of the things would be that the department would be, if it meets all these guidelines, it's something that the department could approve, and we would just notify you as part of our my director's reports that we had X number of donations or whatever. We could share that information so you're aware of it. But if somebody were to ask for something different that did not fit in these guidelines, it would come to the commission. In regard to the pricing, that was in a separate sheet, and prices have gone up, in some cases quite a bit. And what I did is creating the price, because if we're doing this for, number one, it's good for 10 years, right? So within those 10 years, we would then be responsible to replace it and maintain it and the upkeep. So basically, like anything, usually if you give a donation, you have to include the money in there to handle that donation. So with that, and again, I borrowed from my past experience. What we do is we include the price, 2 times the price, plus the type of the cost of installation and then maintenance. So when I came up with the pricing, just for example, the price for maintenance for the teak benches was more than the others because we actually do sand them and stain them every other year or something like that. So there's a lot more maintenance that comes up with that.
Just to clarify, you're not saying we're holding this pricing for 10 years? You're
No,
just
no, no,
saying
no, I'm saying,
we
so
take
when
care
you,
of the bench for 10
we take care
years
of the bench
the amount of
for
money
10
we
years.
collect.
So within that time frame, we would need them to have the funds to be able to maintain it and then replace it if need be. And then what we included in here was if somebody then wanted to keep that and keep the plaque on their bench for, after the 10 years are up, they could redo it with just 50% of the cost at that time. So we wouldn't sit, because we're not going to buy the first initial bench. So we thought that was a fair take on that. And if not, if the bench is still there, if we don't have others people are waiting or it's not too crowded, sometimes I'm sure the bench will, may stay there, or we may just take the plaque off and give it back to the family if they didn't want to keep that. So that's how we came up with the pricing as well. So
What happens if the bench is damaged and needs to be replaced? It can't be repaired.
we would replace it. That's why the cost to do this is for 2 times. So we included 2 benches, 2 plaques,
Gotcha.
plus the installation price and the maintenance cost. And that's how the fees were set. And then what we would do is on an annual basis, or when we're renewing your annual, the fees that you
Right.
review annually, we'd be able to take a look at these, see if they've changed, if they need to be adjusted, and they would be included in that piece. So it doesn't go, I think it's gone maybe a few years without having been
Yep.
reviewed.
I'm just curious, do you have a sense of the number of these that are currently in town? Is there an inventory kept?
We have some, and that's one of our over the winter projects, is to really go back and take a look and then start the process so that we can keep track. Yeah,
I think the records are not what we would like them
Correct.
to be. And
Yeah,
having
we
a
need-
full inventory and necessarily having in one place, okay, this one's 7 years old, this one's.
right.
We could include that on a list when we visit the parks as a starting point. I don't know.
Yeah.
On our
good idea.
park visit.
Yeah.
Right, if we can find them all.
If we
yes.
can
Right.
find them all.
Because we don't necessarily go deep into some of the parks when we do our
Okay.
tour.
Yeah, we can make a start.
Most of the donations have been, where we have a plaque on the benches, not so much the Adirondack chairs.
Yeah.
Right,
I'd say observationally, I
Yeah.
would agree with
I'd
that.
say most of them other benches.
yep,
Well, Jen, I think this is very well done, very straightforward. If approved by the commission, we just want to make sure that we've got this clearly accessible on the Parks and Rec website, so
yep,
people can get right to it.
exactly.
Yeah, Jen, one thing you notice on one of these pages, on the application, it says, it's number 12, Adirondack chairs will be grouped in 3s.
Yeah, that doesn't,
And locked together.
that doesn't have, that's the current
Oh,
policy.
that's the current, okay.
That's- So the one that has draft
Okay.
written as a
Oh, okay,
watermark,
gotcha,
that's the
okay.
new one.
All right, so say we've never done that, and people like to move
Yeah,
them
no.
all over the place.
Well, some are missing too, so.
Is there anything in here that talks about whether the donee can pick the exact location?
Well, we do ask them to give us an idea. They get 3 options to say kind of where they would like it within the park. It would be up to the department for final say. we do typically, I think in most cases, kind of auger them in so that they don't get moved around too much, but
The benches.
benches,
But not
but you
the
know,
chairs.
some of the chairs and things, they may get moved. But we do give them, like, tell us approximately where you want it, and if we can, if we think it makes sense, if it's, you know, on a path where we have to drive maintenance vehicles or something, no, we're not gonna do that, you know, but, so.
There was the bench that ended up on the roof of the bathhouse last summer. It was interesting.
That- We didn't approve that location,
He
so.
did not
There
approve
was
that
a
location.
Fireworks somewhere.
Yep.
So I can't figure, because they are very heavy. Those benches are very, very heavy.
Where there's a well.
Where there is a well. Okay, any more questions for Jen? I really appreciate the work that she and the staff have done to clean that up. It was definitely overdue. So I think we have a much better program, and I like that now we have a methodology for the pricing as opposed to, I felt before it was just kind of, feels right. So that's good. Okay. So here is our motion language. Oh, there it is.
There's no motion.
Oh, there is
You
no
wanted
motion.
to have discussion, and then we would
Oh.
vote at the next meeting.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Keeping me
welcome.
on track. Yes, yes, we wanted to put this out here, socialize it for a month, in case there's any feedback from the public or whatever, and then we'll put it on for a vote next month. Thank you for reminding
Do
me.
you have any idea why Westport is, so event happy or
I don't know.
any event or anything?
No, I mean, they just, and it's most, you know, it's mostly Campo Beach. Then that got filled up, so then they kind of wanted over by Old Mill, and now there's, you know, a whole wall of benches, and we're like, there's too many. So it depends on the location. I don't know. It's just, it's a thing. I don't know. Everybody loves it, so.
We'll send them over to Great Island if we get too many, right?
There you go.
We'll send them to Great Island. Okay, send the benches over there. Okay, all right, moving ahead. We'll get an update from our advisory groups. Didn't include Baker on this list because we had the full presentation earlier, so we are all up to speed with Janet. Mary Louise, I know you said you didn't have too much of an update from the invasives working
Well-
group, but you can just give us.
The Invasive Advisory Group has been hard at work, particularly around Cherry Lawn and the proposed planting path around the pond. We started with 5 landscape design firms early in the summer season. We have met with 3 of them. We particularly liked one. Because this area is in a wetlands area, everything has to be approved by EPC, Environmental Protection Commission. And so the particular person we liked, we asked him to present a plan which we could then submit to the EPC. That plan has not been submitted as of yet. We are following up on it. In the meantime, Chris Filmer, who is serving as a consultant to the invasives group, he's not a permanent part of it, but he's been extremely helpful. And he has created a quasi-bridge, if you like, to go over a particular wet area of the area I'm describing at Cherry Lawn. And that too has to be approved by EPC. So I've spoken to Jen, and we're going to put a meeting together with Chris, Jen, myself, probably Patty as well, and try to get that moving along as quickly
With
as
the EPC
possible.
officer.
This is the area that abuts the stone bridge that feeds into the pond.
Into Treasure Island.
Yeah. The pond itself is an issue. Now, while the duckweed Jen has taken care of, the other factor is that the water quality, the water actually is dead. No reptiles, amphibians, or marine life is alive in that pond. And so kids from the Nature Center who are studying these creatures have to go to New Canaan to find them because there's nothing alive in that pond. Now, I know that the pond is on the agenda as a capital project for 25 to dredge the pond. And I think this is something that we should really move on. I think we should also move on the tree that's submerged in the pond as well as the low-lying limbs that are submerged in the pond as well and raise them all up. I also think that this whole issue needs to be part of the bigger plan for Cherry Lawn. It's not, it goes beyond almost the invasives group. And every one of the people that we met with, all these design people, all mentioned maintenance as being key, not just that we do this planting, but that there's extensive follow-up to keep these plants healthy. The invasives as such, as you will see in the upcoming park tour, they're everywhere. They're in all our parks, they're at schools, they're on private property, and they're dangerous and they cannot be ignored. They host invasive insects, which destroy our native trees and bushes, and smother our established trees with vines. Again, we need to look at this, taking a long-term look at this whole issue, because it's really, you can't ignore it. We don't want to lose these trees. We've done a good job, I think, at Cherry Lawn, attacking the vines that were killing the trees behind the garden. That's taken care of. We also attacked the tree of heavens that were hosting the spotted lanternfly, but that again is an ongoing problem. So that's where we are.
Yeah, I think what we'll need to do is we look at the advisory group charges for 2025. We're going to need to think and talk about how we want to, I mean, it's a significant issue around town. This commission can't tackle the schools and the private property and whatever, but really think again about how we want to prioritize, which is really going to feed into our budget requests. I mean, John, we could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars remediating invasives. There are communities, I think, that are spending several $100,000 to hire consultants just to study their invasive issue. We've not gone that route. Yes, Ed?
I mean, I'm not intending to ask this question of John, but like, given we can't do the schools and the town, like, shouldn't this go to someone that can deal with it? Because it doesn't seem, I mean, just given that like the invasives don't respect the property line or the jurisdiction, it just doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense for us to spend a bunch of money on, I don't know what percentage of the town property we actually sort of manage, but like there's so much other property that we can't deal with, it's not like we're solving the problem.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the trick. You're right, that's the trick. I mean, I think so far the approach we have taken, parts of Cherry here, this section back here, which was awful, is we were able to work with our fantastic maintenance crew, and they were able to go clear this area out of invasives, get the vines off the trees, get some grass down, so to kind of beat it back. So it's really that we have to come up with that balance, because it's more certainly than our staff could ever manage. You know, we were hoping to prevent the spotted lanternfly from getting it out. Well, they're here.
It's everywhere.
They're everywhere.
They're all over the train.
They're right here. I mean, they're everywhere. I went swimming at Pear Tree. There must have been 100 floating in the water, and apparently they swim. They weren't dead in the water. They were flapping their little wings. So we really have to get our arms around the reason what we as a commission can reasonably manage and then get funding for in the context of the issue. I mean, John, I know you're spending a tremendous amount of time now talking about trees. The invasives do damage trees. So it's something we do have to be, thinking about and understanding in terms of getting the vines off of them and whatever. So it's going to be that balance, and it's like everything else. It's kind of a technical subject. We've been very lucky on our group that we've got some master gardeners who've been working with us and been very helpful, kind of giving us free advice. But it's tricky, but it goes beyond town. It is town properties, it's the school properties, it's it's everywhere. So-
Mary Louise, I applaud your efforts, so
Yeah.
thank you. The big thing for me is sort of what's the answer, kind of building on what Ed said, to compartmentalize this a little bit. Like, why do you want to get rid of invasives? Is it to cure invasives townwide? Is it just to be in selective spots that look bad because of invasives? Not to be just saying it's just aesthetics, but that was largely aesthetics, and it looks a lot better versus other areas where you maybe don't care as much. And so it's really just about sort of managing where you're going to have invasives as opposed to doing something bigger. And so I think it's sense for you guys as to how you would compartmentalize it such that it benefits our residents and taxpayers who are living here and looking at this stuff, as opposed to trying to solve a much broader ecological problem, because even if we were to solve it in Darien itself, what about invasives that are going to float over the borders from neighboring towns? We're not getting rid of them, right? And so the question is what's the smart way to manage this so that, and I hate to have to say this, I'm not looking at them in areas where people spend most of their time.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the answer, but you guys tell me.
Yeah, and I think so far that has been our approach, is really let's get the areas, and we've effectively created parkland.
Well, right.
But
there,
over there,
it looks-
Cherry
No
Lawn,
doubt, it looks a lot
whatever,
better.
we've been able
But
to.
in these
you know,
high use
keep them
areas,
back.
it feels like you focus your efforts there.
Yeah.
And these other areas that are low use, you say, well, that's a battle we don't want to wage, or we don't want to spend money waging.
Or we don't have the resources.
That's right.
Yeah, and that'll be the trick, so I think as we go, we have to kind of come up with some focused efforts that are achievable for, you know, the resources that are, both the human and financial resources that are, you know, are available to us. Okay, thank you. And the
Now,
gardeners.
Moving on to the cherry lawn gardens. Well, good news here. Our 63 gardeners have had a very good season, somewhat mixed. Tomatoes, fair. Squash, horrible. String beans and lettuce were very good, and berries were excellent.
I would agree with all of that.
Right.
Is this how the garden performed, or what you like?
No, this is the way
Oh.
all of them basically have performed.
Every year,
Everything
different
is
crops
a
have
little
problems.
different every year. You can never count on the same vegetables doing well every single year. We had our second inspection. A number of gardeners failed because of the amount of weeds, either in their plot and or on their pathways. So I suspect that we will have 4 or 5 people that we're going to lose, which will be good for people who would like to start gardening next year.
Well, you have a big waiting list.
It's over 30 at this point. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's a big demand.
It's a very vital.
Well, and here's the exciting news. Plans are underway for our 50th anniversary next spring. We've picked a date. It's June 21st with a rain date of the 22nd. And we have 2 co-chairs, Junior Morgan and Debbie Jenkins, and about 15 other people who've agreed to work on the event. And the objective basically is that it be a community-wide event showcasing the joy and benefits of working with nature and gardening. We hope to have, I know John has agreed to attend.
I am.
And we have a number of other businesses that are going to be there to speak about gardening. And we'll have some booths and activities. So that's what's happening there.
So Jim, we're not going to suggest a pickleball court over the, no.
I thought we were.
Came over. Yeah, that's great. It was a bad chipmunk year. Really bad. So, okay, thank you, Mary Louise, for both of those. Jim, I think you and Jen are going to tag team on pickleball?
Yeah, I don't have any updates on, from the pickleball committee, but Jen has some things that she'd like to contribute.
Sure, so we're looking at trying to gather some of the data that we've talked about and doing some of the background information. We're actually going to be working with USTA on an assessment. They do it free of charge, which is great. They will be looking at kind of all the usage on tennis courts. They also go a little bit into the pickleball courts, because I think part of what we need to know is, are the tennis courts being used as well, right? So it's a combination of things. And we're also looking at potentially the town looking at a way to track some usage data through that we would be able to do for all of our parks, all of our locations. You could be able to narrow it down enough to know like peak times when courts are being used. You know, we can do the geofencing, so we can get some real detailed information, and we'll be able to track. So we're looking into that too, to see if that's an option for us. And then I will be attending the NRPA, National Recreation and Park Association conference in a couple weeks, and already have on my schedule to hit some of the pickleball, US Pickleball Association and things, to get some other additional information and see if maybe they also do some sort of assessment like USTA. So we're trying to get the information stuff on the backside.
How do they measure usage?
Part of it is for USTA stuff on their assessment. They do, some of it is through they'll look at kind of our reservation systems. They'll look at our lessons, you know, how many participants we have, things like that. If we have any information on, because they also actually will take into account our paddle tennis courts as well. So any of the racket sports they'll be looking at.
Padel as well? Will they, Padel? We don't have any Padel courts, but that's
we
coming.
don't have that. That was mentioned, the name came up.
Yeah. They call it paddle, but some people
it's
call it Padel.
Yeah, that's the new up and coming
it's
sport.
coming strong.
So, but yeah, so we just had a preliminary conversation with them. So they'll be sending us information to ask us to provide all sorts of data, which then again will be something that we're going to be doing anyway in our office, just trying to track all the information so that we can provide some good data for you guys to look at.
But the issue of sort of white space, like non-reservation, namely, I'm talking about the tennis courts at Cherry Lawn, that there seems to be both mystery and difference of opinion on about how much they really get used. That's not gonna, the USTA doesn't have some magical way to solve that, do they?
That's part of what we're also hoping we'll be able to use this other information for, the other data, I can't think of the name of what it's called, but,
Geolocating?
yeah, but it's like using geolocating, so they can tell sort of, and they can also tell kind of if people are local. They can tell if they're local or if you're coming through cell phones.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all geofencing technology that measures what's on your phone and your location. So it can identify that you're in a particular location, so it can tell where you're coming from and how long you spent there, that type of thing, all from your phone.
But it would be able, one of the things that would be useful is to show, peak hours. Okay, so they're really used from 6 a.m. to, 10 a.m. Then there's nothing that happens, so it shows all sorts of information. So we're trying to be able to move forward on that.
I think that's useful townwide.
Yeah, and it's something that we could use townwide. It wouldn't be just for us. If we're able to do it.
Usefulness, I was wondering how they are they like flying drones over
No.
for a month, or like what do they do?
No, it's all cell phones, and they are able to extrapolate data from that.
So that would be helpful also for Cherry Lawn Park usage and playground. and-
Yep.
Yeah.
So when
Expanded.
I did a little kickoff thing with them. Okay, so let's have a Zoom meeting. They pulled it up for me and showed it to me, and I used Cherry Lawn as the example. I said, let's see Cherry Lawn. And I will tell you, I gave them the date, and they can go back to 2017. So we'd be able to track trending data as well, which will be useful. And we were looking at the past year, and I just had them do Cherry Lawn, and then, so it was kind of going along, and the date, we opened the playground, and it spikes, and then it was up nice and high, so.
They know exactly where you've been. Terry, you can't drive around
It's amazing.
undercover.
Exactly. I said, oh, this is really cool, but it scares me at the same time. I'm like, okay.
Know exactly
But-
where you are.
But it's anonymous, like they don't know who you
think we used it in my previous business.
But-
for
You did?
advertising.
Okay, so you're familiar with it?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm ready.
great. So, what's the name of the company? Or it's
Secret.
USTA?
No, USTA, the US Tennis Association, is a separate, they don't use the geo.
Company, but just the geo fencing.
I don't have it.
Anyway,
Yeah, I can follow up.
Okay, good. Okay, Jen's report.
No,
Parks tour. Parks, you're having a rough night. You know what? Long meetings today. Not that John hasn't had 3 times as many problems. Yes, so we need to set the date for our fall parks tour. Thank you, everybody. You provided feedback. It looks like the best date that the most of us can make it is Saturday, October 26th. And then after that, October 12th, 19th, and November 2nd were tied for 7 people. So October 26th, 8 of the 9 members can make it. The other dates, 7 of the 9. So generally, we've tended to go with the date that the most people can make it. The challenge there, it is later in the month, but that's not horrible. We've gone later than that. So I just wanted to throw that out as a potential date for the parks tour.
Okay, so why is it potential? Why aren't we just saying it's October 26th instead?
Well, we're going to vote on it.
Okay.
It's a special meeting. We have to vote on it to add it.
Okay, good.
So I'm just reporting back after getting input from all 9 people, what date works for the most people. Okay, so we'll go with October 26th because that's the date that works for the most people? Okay, may I have a motion?
Motion to go with the 26th.
October 26th, second? Jim, all in favor? Okay, now, we usually do about 5 parks. I'll work with Jen on the itinerary, 20 to 30 minutes per park. We find 5 and then people start losing interest in time. Chris had a specific request that we get to Tilly this year, which we did not do last year. So, thoughts, where do you guys want to hit?
If I can make a suggestion, just going through looking at what we've done other years, where we're currently seeing improvements, I think the parks that we've discussed the most, and coming from north, Darien south, starting at Cherry Lawn, because there was just so much going on.
Yep.
And I think we just need to be diligent because last year I think we spent like 50 to 60 minutes there.
Yep.
So Cherry Lawn, coming down to McWan, just because we have the playground there as well, so we can see 2 playgrounds. Slide over to Tilly. I don't think that takes very long. We haven't looked at it. We've lost a lot of trees due to natural causes, but still, I think it's worth taking a look around there. From Tilly to Baker, because we have the new playground coming in there, and then either finishing at a weed or a pear tree.
That sounds good.
So that's 5.
That's good, yeah. But the only challenge, I think we tried to get to Baker last year, and we had to scrap it because
Okay.
there was a ball game
Parking.
going on,
Yep.
and we couldn't park. So that would be the only risk of that. So
Yeah.
we would just have to figure
Yeah,
that out
right.
in advance. How we-
Terry, you're a ball game guy. You can just tell us on the 26th what's going on.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay.
Does.
Yeah.
It seems like in the spirit of the commission, we should bike.
That's a great idea.
Well, it's also north to south. So it's all downhill.
I love that idea.
Well, we can try to park or whatever, so we'll just have to figure that out or figure it out. But other than that, any other thoughts, input, places you're dying to get to that you haven't?
I would vote for weed over pear tree because I think we spent a lot of time at pear tree last year. There's a lot going on. I'm
Yeah.
not saying there isn't. But with this new pathway, et cetera, I think it'd be a good idea this year.
I agree with Amy on that one. For anyone who's new who hasn't done it, wear boots and heavy pants because Susan Daly walked us through all the.
Yeah, we kind of go bushwhacking.
Yeah, but that's how I really had an idea of how much land is over there, is getting to actually walk through it. And we were doing that, and I was blown away with what is potential usable space that we're not using at all. So,
Did you say a tentative time that we're going to start?
Generally, we try to get everybody assembled and ready to go by 9. We could make it 8:30 if people want to get going earlier, and we try to wrap up around noon. Because, you get a lot of time to get around town on a Saturday, et cetera. So, and, I'll actually with Jen work up an agenda and say, we start at this time, we 40 minutes, but by the end it gets a little bit like herding cats.
Well,
Just
can
saying.
we carpool? I mean, or,
We can certainly try, yeah.
because that
Can certainly
parking is an
try.
issue, that
Yeah.
might help.
Again, group of people who kind of live near each other at the end, because otherwise somebody's car
Yeah, I
is
think Baker's the
all the
only
way
one to run
back.
into the car issue.
Okay, I'll work on the agenda and make some of those.
Yep.
Okay, but we're on for the 26th. Adele?
I would be remiss, Adele kind of, Parks and Rec, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that the pear tree was the top priority and with our group, and I think that we might get some pushback if you didn't include it on the tour.
Thoughts?
I think
Well, we could add a sixth, can't we?
can add a
I know we
sixth.
don't want to drag it out, but if we need
add a
to.
sixth and understand that Baker might not be possible anyway.
Right.
Okay.
No offense.
Okay.
I mean, we also just did Baker, so.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know
Yeah.
what even.
Might be better to do Baker after the park has been installed.
Absolutely.
We do it
There's not
on an
much
annual
to.
basis,
Okay.
right?
So we're scrapping
So
Not a
there.
lot
maybe
we're gonna
we
accomplish
do that
there.
and do the 2 beaches instead.
Okay.
There's nothing to see.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, I'll get that worked up, and we have to get the notice posted, et cetera.
So we're
Tim,
replacing
join us.
pear tree with Baker?
Replacing.
Yes,
Other way around.
Yes,
Vice
right.
versa.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
so sorry.
Yeah.
We knew what you meant.
Thanks.
Okay, good. Okay, some years we've done the nature preserves, but this seems to be skewed more toward like a really active parks where there's a lot going on and we have, more to think about in terms of usage and such. So
Yep.
that's good, and then this helps us inform our budget discussions, which we're, going to be going into, and Jen's probably starting working on already. Okay, Jen, now it is time for your report.
Nope. Well, hopefully people read it, so I'll try to be quick going through. Obviously, we've already talked about weed, but just so you know that we will be doing, we talked about this, we'll be aerating and reseeding again over the next week or two, just because it didn't take as well as we had hoped. So we will be doing that. Pear tree, we are working with Weston and Sampson on the bid documents. We've already had a pre-meeting with planning and zoning to make sure that they hit everything that we need to. Looking so that we would go through, get P&Z approvals with the expectation to go out to bid early 2025. ARPA, we talked about the playgrounds already. For Baker, Cherry Lawn obviously is mostly complete. They'll still be coming back to do the, again, in August it was too hot, we didn't want to seed, so they'll be coming back to put down the seeding on that, and we still have just temporary signs up, so there's the little minor things to do there. One thing, it's a huge hit, it's great, everybody's loving it. The one issue that it's causing is traffic and parking. It's mostly, parking is a big thing, so we're looking into how we can deal with that, especially in that circle, they're parking, so it's, number one, it's dangerous, number two, damaging to the tree roots and things like that, so there are areas, so we're trying to find what ways to be able to stop people from parking
Yeah,
there.
that's an important tree there.
As well as some signage, but we don't want to put a ton of signage because then it's just going to look like signs everywhere. So we're working on that.
There's also a garbage problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I was there today and it was fine. I think there's,
Sometimes it's no
Right.
problem and sometimes it's terrible.
In any particular spot,
In
or just by the
new
playground?
Yeah.
Just need more cans.
Yeah.
I don't know, you just need people to put the things in the
and more
can.
cans. Yeah.
It's stunning.
Definitely include the traffic study in your budget this year and make sure.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a precursor to
Yep.
approving money for parking or fixing
Yeah.
roads, so let's not miss that this year. 'Cause they cut it last year, but we don't do that.
Yeah, I would really second that. I think it's, Cherry Lawn is our children's, our young children's area for the most part. We do have some ragged in there too, but Nature Center, et cetera.
Yep.
in the soccer and the baseball, I really worry that someone's gonna be hurt
Yeah.
by people zipping in.
But we have to control, one morning, Jen and Sandy and I, and Mary Louise, you were with me, and
Yeah.
the woman came and she parked a big SUV like right under the tree,
Oh, yeah.
and there were plenty of empty parking spaces, and I'm just like,
It's
why?
closer, it's
Right.
closer.
Yeah.
So some of it's that, and then some of it gets to be, then it gets filled up. But it seems like they just park there because it's closer.
So Sandy's working on either
First.
getting some big boulders or something that we have to put that's not movable to
Right.
just stop that as quickly as we can.
But so that we can still get in to maintain the grass and things, so.
Quick question, does the Nature Center own their property or the town own the Nature
Yeah, they
Center?
lease it from.
Okay, including the whole trail in the back? Okay.
Yeah,
No, that's some
That's-
land trust. Some of the path in the woods is land trust.
Trust property.
Okay.
Just finishing up with ARPA, so we did get some equipment with ARPA money. We've received our 3 enclosed trailers. One of them is complete and is on the road, which is really great because we're able to, actually it came in handy with one of the storms that was coming up. And as you may know, the shop over there floods, or has the potential to flood, so we had to get everything out, so we were able to load up all the stuff, but we're able to keep stuff there and then just hit the road. So those are great. We've already gotten our stand-on blower and that's already in use too, so. Programs and administration, fireworks, we did end up with our rain date, but it was perfect weather. The event was great. I got plenty of comments from people saying it was the best show they thought they'd ever seen. So they did a really, really great job. We've been having the concert series at Tilly with Baywater Properties. There was one that got rained out. That will be this Friday as the last concert at 6 p.m. You may have been one of the more than 1,000 people that showed up here at Weed Beach on September 8th to welcome Spencer Knight and the Stanley Cup. Again, perfect weather day. I've never had such good luck with weather. But everyone seemed to love it. It was a great event. Us, police department, and Darien Athletic Foundation kind of coordinated. So it was great. This past Sunday, we did have our first pickleball tournament. We had 24 out of 40 teams. We do think part of that was because the road race happened this on the same day. So that we'll look to that for next year as to better planning on that. As you saw in my report, revenue for both program, beach permits, and Beachgate all continue to grow. For our fall winter program registration, we had our largest ever, just one day on August 21st. So that was and we're up almost 8% from last year. Our top fall programs right now are our youth tennis, then adult tennis, our tiny tots, soccer, and then pickleball lessons. And one of our new things that we added was a lacrosse program, and we had 75 people sign up for that, and wait list, so that was extremely popular. And then our paddle courts, our reservations for the paddle courts will start on October 14th. Staff-wise, we had a really good season with our lifeguards, and they were able to stay long enough that we were able to actually keep both beaches staffed, other than the 3 days when the kids were back in school. So that was a plus. That doesn't always happen. And we held a joint training with Post 53, which was really successful. They go over different types of emergencies and how to put the casualties from the lifeguards to the transition of care. So that was a good training. I think that we do typically every year, but it was good. Facilities-wise, maintenance-wise, we continue to have a number of dead, diseased, or damaged trees that keep popping up. Unfortunately, some are beyond our capability. They're too big or we can't get to them. So we'll be tracking that but for budget purposes, but we seem to be having quite a bit. As was mentioned, Cherry Lawn Pond was was treated. We did all three. It's a series of 3 treatments. They all happened for the duckweeds, so we're in good shape there. And Cherry Lawn, Tilly Pond was treated for algae as well, so now that should be in pretty good shape. The thought there was we'll be doing something in the spring to get ahead of things and to kind of rebalance the water, but we didn't want to do it now over the winter. It's kind of, we felt it wasn't worth the money. We didn't want to throw the money away. In terms of baseball fields, they've recut all the the base paths and the pitcher mounds on the baseball fields in preparation for the Little League season, which is now underway. And we're finishing up the fall aeration and seeding on all the fields. And now their big thing is there's a bunch of repairs that need to be made to the Weed Beach, the bathhouse, and this building, so they're working on those. And then just some of our upcoming events. I mentioned the concert. We also have a movie night in cooperation with the Youth Commission. That's going to be held on October 4th at Highland at 6:30 p.m. The movie is going to be Inside Out 2. And then just putting stuff on your calendars for Old Fashioned Holiday will be scheduled on December 7th. We are looking for sponsors for things, special things like our ice sculptures and stuff like that. So if anybody knows of anybody that wants to provide a sponsorship, we're happy to take it. And then we're looking to do a mother-son fun night in January and the daughter duo dance in February. So that's...
I think you likely know that the soccer field at Cherry Lawn is organically
Yes.
maintained.
Yes.
We were going to do a roof, I think we did that maybe 3 years ago. And we were going to take a look at how that's going and maybe roll that out into another field. I'd love to hear any feedback
Okay.
that you have on it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. I know actually, I think there was something written that Sandy provided me. Try to scale it down a little bit, but yeah.
No, I don't
That's
want to
something-
give you more work, you've got
No.
a lot to do, but I think we wanted to revisit that.
If we're gonna do that, we need to do it during budget season because the organic is definitely more expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any questions for Jen?
And just one other thing came up at the last meeting. Several residents had complained about the men's bathroom at Patry, and we discussed the possibility of converting one shower to a urinal
Yeah.
for next season. Does that have to go out to bid to do that, or is that something that we can just,
Depends on the cost.
I'm not overly enthusiastic about ripping out work we just did.
Well, we didn't actually, I mean, the 2 showers were already there.
Yeah,
We
but
would
we
be,
refinished them and everything.
right, but right now it's just one toilet in the men's room, so
And one toilet. in the
if you
men's
recall,
room.
we had a number of people saying that they weren't happy about that and would like to have a urinal in the men's room. So the only place to go would be the shower, and I don't know what the cost would be to do that or what amount of work, but just putting it out there, we discussed it at the last meeting.
And just so the public understands, when we did the renovation to the bathrooms, it was determined that the stalls were not ADA compliant, which the renovation necessitated. And in order to make these stalls ADA compliant, we had to go from 2 stalls to 1, or in the men's room case, from 1 stall and a urinal. So it was, working with the footprint of an existing building, working with the budget that we are limited to because the property is in a flood zone and we can only spend so much money, so it's this push-pull and whatever, but.
How about we take a look at it when we do our tour?
Yeah.
Yes, could we have Sandy or architect or whatever else, also with us when we tour their training? You would take a look at it.
I can't speak for that in terms of asking staff to work out.
That's on the weekend,
Yeah.
That's it, let's take a look at ourselves and we'll go from there.
Okay. Is that it? Can I just wrap up with my report? Okay, I'll try to get through this quickly. I attended with John today, asked me to join OPC. I'm not going to go through all of it. You all can watch the video, but just a couple of things specific to Parks and Rec that I thought were interesting. Steve O'Baney mentioned that they are beginning to refresh the town plan of conservation and development. They're interviewing consultants. They expect to pick one by November 1st. It'll take about a year and a half. There'll be 3 open hearings for the public, and many local boards and commissions will be looped in. And he definitely specifically said that Parks and Recreation, so we'll be looped into that process to get input to that plan. He mentioned, one of the things they look at is infrastructure capacity. Does the town have enough sewer, enough schools, and blah, 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 blah. And when I asked, is there any way that the consultants help determine what sort of the capacity or needs are for open space in a growing community? And he said that they do develop benchmarks, usually on park and open space versus population, but this might be another way for us to help get information when we think about, why do we need to do this, why do we need to do that, what do we need? It will be more information for us. I thought that was kind of interesting. He also mentioned that the Parklands development, which abuts Selleck's Woods, the property was sold. Unfortunately, the previous owner who we had worked with, I think he came to our commission, turns out he had passed away. I was concerned with the new owner. The previous owner had made some commitments to us in terms of improving the entrance to Selleck's Woods and providing parking spaces to us. Steve confirmed that that was in the approval and it went with the sale. So we're protected on that. So I was really glad to hear about that. So just thank you for including me because you get a couple of good nuggets, nuggets of information.
As well.
Yeah, so that was very helpful, and I shared a lot of the things we were talking about. Great Island, again, you can watch the tapes and the videos. I just remind people that we do have the event coming up this Saturday. There's a session at Town Hall in the morning. In the afternoon, I emailed you all about you, and if you have availability, I encourage you to attend. There's also going to be a polo event there. What's the date, Jim?
I think 26th.
Ooh.
The 26th.
Oh, well, that'll be a busy day then if we do our park tour in the morning. Yep. I thought about that. Okay, well, that day's full. So that's that. Coastal Commission met this past Monday night. They shared a report that comes from the state about beach closures, but it's a year old. It was 2023. Weed and Pear Tree, they have tier 1, 2, and 3, depending on the number of closures. Our beaches moved from tier 2 to tier 3 in 23, which is more closures, but our closures were preventative, meaning there was an inch or more of rainfall and they automatically get closed, as opposed to due to the testing, which is done by the health department, which says the bacteria levels are too high, you need to close. So it's kind of Mother Nature's report, but they did share that with us. I just want to make sure to thank Jen and her staff for helping with the Stanley Cup event and the upcoming polo event. These were not events that were in their plan of work this year. They kind of came up. Somebody had an idea, the town said, yep, let's do this, and they stepped up and got it did, and I got wonderful compliments back from the tremendous work.
I just say Jen and Cassie were amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they were there, they were on top of it. It was a tremendous event. You guys were awesome.
Right,
Really
but this was just something kind of extra that got lobbed onto them, and now, with the polo event, the same thing. Monica's asked for their assistant, and they're stepping up, so I just, thank you so much. Thank you. We talked about the timing with Pear Tree, Fall Parks Tour, we got the budget process coming up, and that's all I've got. That's all I've got, so, any other questions? No? Okay, then I will accept a motion to adjourn. Ed? Amy second? Everybody good? TV 79, thank you so much.